Today is April 26th, 2016. I am Liam Shaw, and this is Bob Clark, and today he will be speaking to us about the Vietnam War. Our general location is Mocksville, North Carolina. So Bob, where and when were you born?
July 8, 1953 in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Homegrown, eh?
Mm-hmm.
What were you doing before you became part of the Vietnam War?
Always a student, but Vietnam impacted us even when we were young. I remember having a debate about whether the U.S. should be in the Vietnam War back in junior high school. It impinged upon us in high school because we wrestled with should we be there, should we not be there, are we going, or we're going to be drafted, and especially in college, as many of us worried about the great possibility of a draft. And I'm old enough where I'm one of the last ones to have gone through the draft system.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, I was number 355 out of a possible 365, and the only reason I would go is if there were World War fighting.
So, did you know anybody who went? Like any of your friends?
I knew a couple of guys from high school who were volunteering, which was unusual. I also knew a fellow whose draft number was 103. He got so upset that he punched my dorm room door, broke the spring on it, and stormed out. And he knew he was going at 103. So what he did was he joined the ROTC program, became a chaplain, and served out his military service as a chaplain, thereby avoiding conflict.
Yeah. So, how did the experiences you had kind of affect your life?
A lot of fear for most of us that we were going. A long time, the draft was one holding, which meant that you got a deferment. If you were going to college, or you had some type of medical disability, but for most folks, if you were going to college, you were placed on hold and you were allowed to go to college. And most of us were crossing our fingers that the war would have ended by that time. It changed, though. It became 1A. There was no one holding. And when the draft was held and you were 1A, you were gone whether you were in college or not. Now, that becomes much more of a fair system. That, in essence, means that poor minority folks that were getting snuffed up and sent to Vietnam weren't going to be made totally responsible for that. The rich WASP folks who could afford to go to college could get deferred, which placed the disproportionate responsibility of the war basically on African Americans.
Yeah.
And it was changed because of that. But when you're a kid and you're unsure about that war and you're frightened of it, 1A is on your mind constantly. Especially if you're going to fight for something that at first you start to question, and then you begin not to believe in at all.
That must be pretty scary to know that any day you could have to go off.
Yes, yeah, and I knew guys that said that they were going. They weren't. They were going to Canada. You were in dread of basically the draft day, and in those days it was kind of low tech. So there were two bins of ping pong balls with a number. One was a date on the calendar, and the other was 1 through 365. And they would just spin. Somebody would reach in, pull out a number and a calendar date, put them together, and that was the draft number for the person born on that day. And just kept doing it until you had all the numbers matched. So, yeah, you lived in dread of that particular day coming up for your year, especially when you realized what type of war it was. It was a guerrilla war. So you didn't have lines of people fighting like in World War II. The person that you encountered in any village or in Saigon through the day that may have been your friend at night may not be, and may know a whole lot of information about you. So as you're struck with those type of things, and I was also struck that I wasn't one of those guys that's a fighter. My survival sense in a street fight or in a jungle fight was going to be absolutely nil. And so I knew that if I got drafted, I would make it 6 months. Too young, too green, too naive, had no sense of fighting, didn't want to fight, was more of a peaceful guy. I wasn't going to make it. And so, yeah, there was a huge sense of threat.
So, were there any particular life lessons that you learned from any of the events that transpired during this time?
I think in terms of life lessons, very frustrating as a young man not to be able to grow up with a sense of heroism that you saw in the movies. John Wayne would go out and strike a blow for liberty, and it's what you grew up kind of expecting you to be able to do. When you were a kid, when we were kids, we were constantly in pretend games fighting the Nazis or fighting the Russians, and we always win. And when we got shot, we'd get up about 15 minutes later, we were all good, and we'd play again. It was frustrating. It was disenchanting. Yes, it was a sense of rejudging yourself in very negative ways, a sense that those ideals that you grew up with, you weren't going to be able to make and meet because you didn't sense that you were that type of guy that had the ability, or maybe the courage or the bravery, to put yourself in the line of fire, or to shoot in the jungle through stuff, or to conduct nighttime jungle campaigns and stuff. But you didn't know whether, and so I think in terms of personal, it was kind of a confrontation with traditional masculinity. And I think I probably started to really judge the difference between what's considered traditional masculinity and were there other ways to be a man that didn't necessitate fighting. I guess the other thing was in terms of religion. Radically enough, are there any good wars? When you think about what we're taught, and you can, in terms of the New Testament or in terms of most religions, are any wars okay? Is there a God that sits up and goes, you know what? I'm for the United States. Now I'm against war, and I'm telling you not to kill each other in the Old Testament, and I'm telling you through my son in the New Testament, you're supposed to love your enemies. You know what? This one, I'm really rooting for the United States, and I hope they kill as many people as possible. You start wrestling with that in terms of your own personal stance and your morals and your religious beliefs. And then that becomes extremely unpopular. God is not for the USA. God is for something bigger than the USA. In terms of thought, are there any wars that you can support, or are you asked not to engage? If you look at Thou Shalt Not Kill, there's not an asterisk there. It goes down to the bottom of the page and says, unless under these conditions, then it's okay. And when you're told to especially love each other, and especially your enemies, what type of restructuring do you think? When the 9/11 towers are taken, and when the towers taken down 9/11, and I heard every minister talk about God's righteousness and judgment. think, what would Jesus have said? Of course, that wasn't very popular. We talked about gifts. And so in terms of personal growth, there was a lot of struggling with how you define yourself as a man, as a person. And what are your morals and your religious beliefs? What can you come down to believe in? How unpopular is that, and how much do you stand behind that? And how strongly do you believe those things?
Yeah. I'm sure people will appreciate that one. If you had to leave a message for future generations who haven't experienced this event or any like it, what advice would you give them?
Become involved in part of the process. You see too oftentimes in civics classes that people rest back and they say, this is terrifically boring, I hate this, I've got to run an awful class. And they don't realize the importance of knowledge of how the system works and how much it can affect each and every one of them. Too many people bought what the government was selling, and the government was lying to us. That invasion of Cambodia, that was hush-hush. The body counts, we're killing so many North Vietnamese, they were made up. They were counting animals. They were counting chickens and cows and stuff to convince the American people that we were winning because we were killing much more of them than they were of us. This constant talk about peace is at hand, that old World War II phrase, and that it's right around the corner, wasn't it? You knew it. This deal about the domino theory, and if we let Vietnam fall, then the Philippines will fall, and et cetera, it's nothing more than a theory. It wasn't fact. We came to learn that nationalism was much more important than the domino theory. There were a lot of things that we were sold that weren't the truth. And yet there was another side that wanted to believe America right or wrong. It doesn't matter to me whether we're sold this stuff or not. It's my country, so therefore it must be right even if it's wrong. Yeah. If the government's saying it must be true. And being patriotic means that you don't question, you just do. Isn't being patriotic sometimes pointing out that the emperor has no clothes? And those folks who sometimes point out the unpopular side, could they not be right? And doesn't our government, and could the Constitution provide for that? That freedom of speech means that, doggone, you should listen to the other side because there's a possibility that they could be right. The future generations question. Come involved in the process. Question. Express what you question. Here in this state, there's Moral Monday. And it's a important series of events because you may not believe that or not. But it's important in our society we honor those folks who have a difference of opinion. It's inherent in freedom. That we not practice that there's just one way of looking at stuff. I think they call that groupthink. It's reinforcing each other's disastrous point of view. That we express that. We learn how to express it well so that people hear us rationally, not shrilly like we hear in politics today where one side wants to take each other down and one side is calling each other names and that type of stuff, but intelligently and with respect for the other side, but with conviction of our thoughts.
I never thought about it like that. That's an interesting point of view. What about this event was the most impactful to you personally?
disenchantment with what the government was doing, and they were saying that they were doing, and the lies that were coming up. I guess the other thing that's impactful is the terrific sadness of watching boys, young men and boys, come home either dead or permanently, psychologically debilitated. We were sending 18-year-olds to war. And we can say that they're grown up, but 18-year-olds are not grown up. They're not ready or capable of taking on a war experience and coming out okay. That's craziness. There's nothing about 18-year-old stamped on you that makes you mature and be grown up. There are guys out there that are getting killed that are screaming for mom when they're dying. There's nothing mature about an 18-year-old that allows them the judgment, maturity, and psychological power to withstand the horror of the war. And sending boys there, and sending young men there who come back permanently messed up. And now we call it post-traumatic stress syndrome. And as a counselor, I've worked with those guys and their families who come back and see the repercussion of their life and their family's life, and therefore the next generation's life. That's what's personal. The horrors, and listen to the horrors of what they endured. And if you want a fairly representative movement experience, watch Coming Home with Bruce Dern, John Boyd, and Jane Fonda. It's a pretty good movie perspective of what coming home after that experience is like.
It reminds me of the scene in Saving Private Ryan where they tell the mother that her sons are dead, and she sits on the porch and I don't know, taking that image. So, what was the overall effect of this event on both the United States and the world in general?
I think to answer that, the world in general, probably a lot of anger and a lot of loss of faith in the United States. And that's notwithstanding Kissinger's great accomplishments, especially in terms of helping to open up China. That was certainly a coup and a victory for Kissinger and for Nixon. But the deal was that Nixon needed foreign policy victory in order to distract people from what was going on in Watergate. I think the world knew that we were involved in a cause that had questionable morality in it, a lot of stupidity in it. I think we lost people who had faith that we were America and we were doing the right thing. Effect on the country was huge loss of faith. In the time, there was what's called a credibility gap. Phrases come and go, and that one's certainly gone, but it was the gap between what the government was saying and wanted us to believe and what we actually believed. Loss of faith that the government was being truthful. Loss of faith that the government was doing the right thing. And then there was another thing called the generation gap. Fathers who had been through World War II and knew that America in their time was pursuing a right or righteous cause and had faith in America that they would continue to do so. And their sons and daughters who said, that might have been true in your day, but it's not true right now, which caused huge arguments and rifts between generations. And I think some of that healed. I don't think some of that did, because when you started to marry, the lies that came out from the Johnson administration, the Nixon administration, about what was going on in Vietnam, and then you married that with the lies that came out in Watergate, then what happens is the press no longer begins to believe exactly what the government is saying. The press becomes much more cynical, investigates much harder, and doesn't give folks or people in leadership positions the benefit of the doubt. And then you marry that with the 24-hour news cycle, and there's constant digging and revelations of stuff. And I think that affects the American people. And instead of having that kind of, if you look at World War II, that kind of we're behind you, believe in what we're doing, we're victory garden, we're all sacrificing together and all that stuff, then it becomes, what are you all about? What is this about? I'm not sure that I trust it. And I think part of that distrust and that anger, you can see today. When you start looking at candidates that are running on angry platforms, what are they appealing to? Are they angry people? People that are angry that the government isn't working, isn't being honest and fair, isn't doing what it's supposed to do. And I'm not saying that there aren't other things that contribute to that, but I do think there's a basis in that. Once Americans found out that Eisenhower was lying and that we were indeed flying spy planes over the Soviet Union, and he denied it, and the Soviet Union all of a sudden picks up this guy, and I think his name is Gary Powers, that says, no, here's the plane, here's the pilot, your president's lying to you. Eisenhower of all people. And then people, I think, started going, really? That's a lie. I didn't know the government did that. Or a lot of people did. And then you start picking up momentum with what's happening in Vietnam and Watergate. I think the consequence for the country is a lot more skepticism, cynicism, and anger over what comes out. And then you start questioning patriotism. If I'm that way about my government, what kind of patriot am I? It's being patriot, being going back to the same thing. You trusting everything. Being a patriot meaning I'm trying to get my country to do the right thing in the best way I see it. And I think that immediately what comes out of the country is something called the Wars Power Act, which tries to prevent another Vietnam. You can't get engaged in a short-term skirmish with the country unless you go to Congress. And we all thought, well, good, that'll prevent another Vietnam from happening. And that's debatable. Whether the War Power Act has been utilized in the way, in the way I think it was intended. I'll give you another example. The Gulf of Tonkin resolution was supposedly called North Vietnamese boats that fired on American boats. And that was an act of war. And they would come to find out that it was made up. And so, how many American boys did lost their lives because of something made up? So, consequence of the country, not believing, also means, especially if you were the parent, cousin, or uncle, one of those kids without even knowing what it was. That's a tragedy for all concerned.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
I think that, unless you've got another question, I think that pretty well covers it. Like in your community, I think I probably rambled so much because there's so much in here that you want to get out of the rest of it. I hope I've been fairly clear. I try to kind of be honest and from heart. But I think that's all. That helps it unless you have another question.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And thanks for all the information.